time. I'm going to pass off to Gillie shortly to kick off with an intro and just explain a little bit about, who purchase lease options are, suitable for as a strategy. And then in the meanwhile, if you could have your questions in mind, this is a Q&A session, so it's really for all of you to make the most out of speaking with Gillie, who will be teaching this. Just a quick apologies for not having Gillie on screen. We're having some technical issues getting her camera on, but hopefully you will still get as much out of this as you would otherwise. So, so without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Gillie.
Hi everybody, hopefully you can hear me. Yeah, so it's brilliant that you're here today. It's really important that your questions are answered before you join the course. The course that I run is very, very powerful, and the reason it's a course that has taken off so well is because it's about doing, not just learning, and I want to help you actually do. And so I think that first of all it's important to reiterate or just go over really what an option is. An option is the opportunity to acquire a property and have the option to purchase it, but not the obligation. So it means that you can run it almost as though you own it, use it, make money from it, maybe live in it and make money from it, and then not have to buy it at the end of the agreed period, but buy it for a price agreed today at the end, anytime up to the end of the period, if you so wish. So it's very, very powerful, because obviously if you have a house that's worth £200,000 today and you do a 5-year option on it, you're buying it for 200,000 and any time up to the 5-year ending period. But if in 5 years time it's worth 350, you're buying it for 200. It means 6 months later you can leverage against the new value, pull out any money you've borrowed to buy it for the deposit, never use 1 penny of your own money. So the reason options is so amazing is because it's not only an alternative strategy to purchasing in the normal way. Not only do you not need a deposit and you don't need a mortgage, but it is for everybody. So a lot of people might say, well, I don't need to do options because I've got the money. Well, that's great. But if you've got £30,000 and you're going to go and buy £100,000 property and put down a deposit, including solicitor fees and stamp duty, you might make, I don't know, £1,000 profit from that a month, maybe even 2. But if you did 6 options and you paid £5,000 worth of estate agent fees, you've now got 6 properties bringing you in £1,000 or £2,000. So don't worry about that too much. It's probably too much information. But the point is, an option, even if you have money, will mean your return on investment will be significantly higher. And if I tell you that the lowest return on investment I have on any of my options is 444%, I'm hoping you're all going to gasp at that. Now, some of you may not understand what return on investment is. That's okay, because I'll teach you that as well. But it's basically, how hard is your money working for you, or how hard is your investor's money working for you? So the joy of options is it is for everyone, irrespective of education, irrespective of whether you've just come into the country and you can't even get a credit card, irrespective of whether you're 17, 18, 19 years old, irrespective of whether you're a lot older, whether whether you've got savings, no savings, whether you have the ability to get a mortgage or not, whether it doesn't matter. They are available for absolutely everybody. And that's the joy of them. And that's why I am so excited to be able to offer a course where there's no dangling carrots. There's no, oh, you'll get that in the next course. There is no other course. It's a day's course where you should be able to go and get options. And it's not just a learning where you might stick it on the shelf because you're not quite sure how to start it. I want to start it with you. I want to help you find some deals on the day. I want to actually help you ring those agents up. And here, you won't do it, I'll do it. I want you to really get a feel for exactly how it should be done. You need words, you get words, yeah? And so I just, that's just a very small intro. Options have been monumental for me, where I had no money, I had no ability to get a mortgage, and I had no support. So options were an incredible way for me to gain momentum in my property journey. And even though I now have a decent sized portfolio, I still do options, because why wouldn't I? So hopefully that's been a helpful introduction as to why I'm doing this and why indeed I run the course. And now really it's all over to you, because I want to be able to answer any questions so that I can put your mind at rest, or really just create some clarity so that you then can decide whether or not you would like to join us on the course on the 2nd of October. Is there anything else you feel you need to add, Emma?
No, I think that's a great little introduction. And, you know, I think it's always good for people to understand that actually this is a strategy that you yourself have used in getting started in property. I think also, you know, the fact that also you've managed to get your sons as well using the strategy, which I think it's a great testament to how you teach it. Yes, so I've just got a question coming now from Zoe about how are the options valued. I'm not sure when you say valued, what do you mean exactly, Zoe, if you want to clarify, or if you want me to unmute you, I can, and you can ask the question directly. Happy either way. Or I don't know if you can unmute yourself, maybe.
Yeah, I think you can hear me.
Yep, I can hear you. Go for it.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to ask, how are the in terms of how the options are valued? So, say like there's a property that costs 200,000. Would the option be valued at like how much it presently is, and is that how much you would currently pay, and then you have the right to exercise the option later?
So when you do an option, absolutely every part of an option is negotiable. But we start with 3 things. That's where an option starts. What you're going to buy it for, in how many months or years, and what you're going to give the vendor each month. Okay, that's your 3 basic parts to an option. So the first one, which is what you're talking about here, is basically the asking price. So it's not really about what the value is in terms of the option. It's about what the value of the sale price is, what the vendor wants. Because and again, it's all about negotiation. So this is just how I do it. So many other people would do it differently. But my view is, irrespective of whether they've got it on for too much money, as long as it works for you, irrespective of whether people are used to asking for discounts on purchases, this is an option. And if you're going to get it and you don't need a deposit and you don't need a mortgage, and you can probably, you know, have control of it within a very short period of time, obviously assuming you're going to make money from it, because otherwise you wouldn't be doing it. My view is, we should never ask for less. We should never offer less than the asking price, because we're not paying for it for 5 years, and that's if we actually buy it. So I feel that to go in at a lesser price is almost cheeky, and actually not cheeky. I think it's a bit rude, and it's a bit insulting. Oh, I'll buy your house for 200. It's worth 200,000 now. Oh yeah, I'll pay 180 for it, but not for 5 years. Do you see what I mean? So it's all about building rapport with the vendor. And obviously, if you've got a property that's on the market for 200,000 and actually at the moment it's only worth 150, then you've got to think about it. But I probably still would offer 200,000 for 5 years' time, because it pricks their ears up. They obviously want that, but you've got to work it out that it still works for you at 200,000. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you for explaining. So in this initial kind of, so there's a general agreement of how much it will be worth if you have the option to buy it later. But in this initial period, that initial funding, how much would you pay for that option?
Yeah, it's always about now, Zoe. So we don't worry about what it's going to be worth in 5 years' time, because none of us know. We can guess and we can assume and presume because of historical figures, you know, saying most properties double in 10 years, but we don't know. We've no idea. Look what we've gone through now. We have no clue. So we only ever look at the price today. So if the price today is 200,000, we probably offer 200,000 in 5 years' time, because generally they can't sell it, or they don't need the money, and they still get their rent. So they're still, you know, making money on the property, probably getting a better return on it by renting it than they would if they sold it. But the price you offer is today's price for the future. Yeah.
Yeah, I think just to get this clear, so I think I'm talking about the difference between how much is the option versus the actual. So the agreement is in stone, but for the actual option itself, would there be
A monthly amount, you mean?
Yeah, monthly amount, that's it.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Apologies for that. So the monthly amount, again, is totally negotiable. So if you were doing an option on a family house, I would, as part of my due diligence, go away to find out what that would rent for in a normal scenario if she was renting it as a family house. If it was an HMO, I'd do the same. I'd find out what rent she'd get based on that property if she was renting it rather than selling it. I would then check that that worked for me, because obviously if it doesn't stack, it doesn't stack. Now, if it worked out that you could pay her £1,200 or £1,300 a month, and that was sort of relatively close to the average rent in the area, I'd start at 1,000 and I'd leverage so that I know that and you also need to do your risk analysis. You need to say, what's the maximum I can pay my vendor every month as a rent and still be happy with my profits? And if the maximum is 1,200, you start at 900 or 1,000 or whatever you want to, but you know that you never go above 1,200, because if you do, it doesn't stack, does it? Because you're not getting your minimum profit and be happy. And that's the most important thing. So it's all negotiable, absolutely 100%. Depends on the property, depends on the area. You know what? Some people negotiate that the monthly rent comes off the end price. I think that's a bit cheeky, because at the end of the day, we're already getting it several years later at a price first that it's worth today. So to then take off all the rent, whereas if they'd rented it out to Joe Bloggs, they'd never have had to give that back. I think that's a bit off, really. But the point of telling you that is it's so about negotiation that every single deal is different. Is that better? Is that more clear?
Yeah, that's much more clear. Thank you.
That's okay. And what we'll do on the course is we'll look at how we know what to pay for if you've got a £2 million property, obviously your rents are going to be a lot higher than if you've got a £200,000 property. And obviously it also is based on area. So if you've got a £200,000 property in Cardiff or in Grimsby, and you've got another one in Cambridge or Oxford, probably the rent's going to be different, right? So we've got to look seriously at what they would expect or hope for. Now, because they're trying to sell it, they probably haven't even thought about rent. And so therefore, you probably won't have to make the rent as high as you think, because the most important thing to them will be they're getting their asking price, albeit a bit later.
Yeah, that's great, Gillie. And, I think it's really, it's really important that, we kind of stress that there is a lot, of variables to be considered. And that's why it's good to get the training around this. Now, we've got a few other questions come in from Florence. Why would owners go into this sort of agreement?
Okay, this is a question lots of people ask because it looks a little bit lopsided, doesn't it? So I'll give you an example. I mean, if I was to, during the course, one of the things we do is I work with you over a period of about 10 minutes to look at all the reasons somebody might be motivated, okay? And there are reasons that we just sort of, I remember a friend of mine said, oh, there's no motivated sellers in Bournemouth, so you just don't find them. And then when we looked at a list of reasons why people might be motivated, he was like, oh, yeah, you're right. Now, motivated people are not the only people that will do options. But let's say, for example, somebody's been repossessed, or they're being threatened with repossession. We know they've got no equity in the property. We know they can't pay their mortgage, and we know they're going to have to go. Even if they're repossessed, they're not going to be in the house. So we take over the property. We stop the repossession because we start paying the mortgage. Now, in an instant like that, there's probably a little bit of arrears that need paying, and it might be that we agree to pay the arrears, but it comes off the end price at the end, assuming the arrears are not too much and we can afford to pay them. It might be £4,000, it might be 40 grand, I don't know. Well, it wouldn't be that because they'd been out long ago, but we can stop that. So people don't really often realise the hardships of going through a repossession, and how if they sell the property, if the bank sell the property for lesser than the debt, they will come after the vendor for 12 years. It's a gut-wrenching, life-changing, hard thing to go through, a repossession. We can stop that. Now, that's an obvious one. I wonder if any of you can guess as to what the most motivated, in my view, and I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure this is the case, the greatest percent of motivation is from I said that very badly. So is it somebody wanting to repossess, somebody downsizing? What might it be? And I'll tell you what it is. Tired landlords. There are hundreds and hundreds of tired landlords who do not want to be doing what they're doing. Now, often they can't sell the properties and they're very happy. They don't live there. They've already been renting it out. They're a landlord. And so they're very willing to let you take over the property with an option to purchase it 5 years later or whatever. And there are many, many reasons. So I'll give you an example of one the other day. So a gentleman that came on my last course was struggling with various things, and he said to me, actually, he said, Gillie, I don't know what to do. My brother and sister, they're all doing help to buy, young family, a third child on the way, but they had two from other marriages, so 5 children. And he said, I don't know what to do. And I said, well, you could do a help to buy, but had you thought of living in an option? And he said, well, that would be amazing. And I said, you rent your house, right? And he said, yes. I said, do you like your house? He said, I love it. I said, do you know the vendor? He said, yes, she lives next door to me. Do you get on with the vendor? Yeah, very well, because I've looked after the house. What's her situation? And he said, well, I did ask her the other day if she'd sell it. And I said, what was her reaction? And he said, well, she said no, because she liked the income. And I said, there's an option. So I met with the owner last week with this gentleman. And when we finished, do you know what she said? She said, I'm so excited. And it was just the most wonderful response, because what she'd learned, come to understand in me describing it, is she's going to get the same tenant who's never not paid. He's a builder. So all the work that needs doing, so she's just had a quote for about £6,000. He does for nothing because it'll cost him £800. She doesn't pay an agent fee anymore because she doesn't need one. She saves £12,000 a year on capital gains for every year that it runs. So that's another 60k. And she gets the asking price that she wants now for a time in the future. So this lady wasn't motivated. People think they only need to be motivated. It's about thinking outside the box. It's about giving people that education as to the possibility of something like this. So they can go traveling around the world while you only add value to a property. You look after it 1,000,000%. And the point is, if you don't buy it, they get to put it on the market for a high value, because probably you've done it up. Probably you've got more revenue coming in, because you wouldn't be doing it otherwise. So of course, the price goes up exponentially if you've got more revenue coming in. So there are many, many reasons. And that was a very long answer to a very short question.
Yeah. And, just to highlight to everyone, the point is that it's about being creative. So, hopefully that was, for me, actually, I thought that was quite a nice answer to illustrate the point that actually it's not always where you think you might find these options. So, sometimes just about asking. And so we've got just another couple of questions from Marina. So one of them is, what happens if the seller changes their mind before you exercise your option? I think I already know the answer to this, but go for it.
So with an option, you could do an option agreement over a table. So you could come to my house and we could agree an option, and it's a legally binding contract. Would it stand up in court? Absolutely not, because they're quite likely to say, I didn't understand. Somebody's going to say somewhere along the line, I didn't understand. So this is why we absolutely advocate that every single option you ever do is done with solicitors. Okay, so an option, as I said before, gives you the option to purchase, but not the obligation. The vendor, on the other hand, cannot pull out. They can't, because the point is, you might say, well, why would they do that? The point is, we're helping them out of a situation. Probably they either can't sell it, or it won't sell, or they don't want to sell it in the normal way because they've got a problem with agents, or they don't want to wait, or maybe they've tried and it's fallen out of bed 5 times. With this lady I was talking about just now, she wasn't even looking at selling because she wants the income, but she also doesn't want all the other hassles. Okay, so I think that I can't remember what the question was.
It was if the seller can, if they change their mind, what happens? But then
they can't.
I guess a related point, Gillie, someone made us just ask is, do you need a specialist solicitor? That for me ties in.
You do, and a lot of people don't go to specialist solicitors, and you can go to your family solicitor who's done your wills or done something else, you know, or just helped you purchase a normal house. You can go to them and they will act on your behalf, but they will have to go and learn what it is because they're protecting you. Whereas there are loads and loads and loads of solicitors out there. It's like going to a brain surgeon for a broken leg, you know. If you go to somebody who already does options, it'll be a lot quicker. And what I always say to my vendor is, they're usually the ones in the hurry, not us. You know, we got all day. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. They're the ones potentially up the creek without a paddle, wanting to move. And so we say to them, you know, it's really, really important that you use a solicitor who does options for your sake, because it could take longer. My very first option I did on a house rather than a piece of land, it took 7 months because my vendor said, oh yeah, no, he understands it. Well, he didn't understand it. He maybe the solicitor had heard of them, but not done it. So what I tend to do is say, I've got a list of solicitors that my solicitor's given me. Would you like a copy of it? Yeah, so we can hand them. And I genuinely will go to whichever solicitor I'm using. I go, can you give me a list of some people that do options that you know? Other solicitors that you would say were good. And they give me a list and I hand it to the vendor. So it's not it's not a legality, but it's a necessity if you want it to move at speed. And also it's like going to for me, it's like going to, when I used to have a, what were they called? A finance, not broker, finance, or somebody that...
Well, it's like asking for financial advice from your mortgage broker, right?
If I went to a
you just wouldn't do that.
If I went to a financial advisor now about investing, they'd cry. Because if they don't invest themselves, they'll be going, no. And it's the same with solicitors. You've got to go to someone who gets it. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's definitely good advice. So I have a couple more questions that have come in. So from Marina again, you know, I think this one we definitely would cover off in the course, but feel free, Gillie, if you want to touch on it briefly. How do you find out about properties that are being repossessed? Are they in Rightmove or is there another website? I know that that's definitely one we cover as part of the course because there is a way to finding these things. And also just as you described, Gillie, as well, just there's actually a lot that comes out in conversation when you speak with people. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add.
Yeah, so there are sites you can go to for repossession properties, and there are other ways. There are other sites that, as Emma said, I take you to on the course, which give you, you know, motivated sellers. They might not be repossessed. Sorry, nobody's repossessed, are they? But they might not be repossessions. They may be motivated in another way. So. Yeah, and a lot of people don't know this. They don't know this, and they're going, "Wow, look at that! A site full of potential people." But again, their motivation may not. They may deem motivation to be something completely different to how you deem it. You know, they may think that by giving a £5,000 discount on a house is showing motivation. So you don't necessarily know until you get hold of them. But it's still really exciting to know. You know, you can tap into things like that.
Indeed. And, you know, Gillie, I guess just maybe relevant to the flag as well is that, for example, we have Caroline with us and she mentions that she's based in Devon. I mean, I don't know where your sourcing business is, Caroline, but when we've done this exercise with the group, we've had people from all over, haven't we, Gillie? We've had people, you know,
absolutely. I mean,
that are at Oxford, London, yeah.
And I've done webinars, Emma, where they've been abroad. You know, unless you're not allowed to do options wherever you are, options will work in a lot of places depending on what you want to get from it. So I've got people do options on holiday homes. Well, they're obviously not looking to create the same sort of income or because it's a very different market. I've had people who've done holiday options on land, on caravan sites. I've had people do them in the deepest, darkest depths of Wales or Scotland. Not Scotland. Scotland is now, you're not allowed to. It's illegal. You used to be able to, but you can't. But all over the place, yeah, you know, you can be anywhere. And the important thing is we've got to work. One of the things I also want to teach you on the course is the importance of not doing an option unless it works. So I had somebody come to me once and go, "Yeah, I found an option. It's brilliant." I said, "Fantastic. What is it? What are you going to make?" I did the figures and I said, "You're not doing this option." And they said, "But why?" And I said, "Because you're going to lose £2,000 a month." And they said, "Yeah, but it's an option." I said, I don't care if the Queen's coming for tea, you're not doing that option. You know, so you still have to make sure that it works for you. It's just fantastic if you can, because you don't need a deposit, you don't need a mortgage, and it's just brilliant.
Yep, definitely. So one more question, a couple more questions. So from Annabelle, she said, how do you approach vendors to ask for an option if they have an agent? I would like to do this with a property I'm currently renting, but I communicate via the estate agent. And, you know, this is something that, again, we do cover kind of language and how we approach people in the course, but I don't know if there's something you want to touch on quickly, Gillie, on that?
It's monumentally important. So I teach in the course why I believe people don't get options. And one of those things is how people speak. And so I know many people who teach, you know, you've got to get to the vendor, you've got to get to the vendor. Yeah, getting to the vendor is great. And it's good because you don't have to go through an agent. But actually, when you get direct to a vendor, you're only talking about one house. If you get agents on board with you, they've got whole massive houses that could work as options. So I want you to learn how to speak to an agent. Now, also, based on rapport building, if the agent trusts you, they may allow you to speak to the vendor. But if they don't, even if they get to a point of thinking, yeah, I really get this, and it could work, the next point is you have a meeting with the agent and the vendor. So it's fine. But it is all about words, and there are two things I believe it's all about, and one of them is words. And so I go into that in depth in the course. So literally, I help you work out what you think you might say. I tell you what I say, I give you what I say, and then I go and do it with you listening.
Yep, that's a really good point. And I've been on one of these and I've watched it in action, and I was in awe. So it's definitely, you know, it's definitely an experience, and actually it's something you can learn a lot from. So thank you, Gillie. So I've got, sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong, Rukia, I think. I'm going to unmute her and you can ask directly.
Hi, Gillie.
Hi there.
Hi. Similar to the kind of the point that you just made, I recently came upon an opportunity for a purchase lease option, or at least I thought it might be, the family home that we've been living in for the past 29 years. Our neighbour next door has recently moved into sheltered accommodation, and I didn't know how to approach the question with her son-in-law about whether this would be something that they would consider, obviously because it's a sensitive topic by nature of the reason why she was leaving the house, but also because I'm not particularly experienced and I didn't want it to be something that would then affect our relationship in the future, with him thinking that I'm a bit of a shark. And I know that's not the case with purchase lease options. So I'm just wondering, is that something that's covered in the course, how to go about doing things sensitively? And if you've got any pointers at the moment.
Yeah, million%. You see, the thing is with property, irrespective of whether it's options, it's always got to be about people first. And, you know, one of the things I absolutely love about options is, you know, I've been in situations, one specific situation before, where I've gone back and I said, look, I've had to change the figures slightly. And you see their forlorn face, you know, it's like, oh. And I said, because I've worked out I can actually pay your credit card off as well. This is what we're about. This is about helping people, but we're not charity. So it's also about building our portfolio in a very admirable, but also full of integrity and passion and compassion. And if we don't have compassion and we're not empathetic, then we won't get half the deals. We'll get so many more deals if we, and you know, for some of us that comes naturally. And for some of us, we have to train ourselves. We have to train ourselves to smile. We have to train ourselves to pause and to not rush. We have to train ourselves to not allow the desire and the desperation at times to show, but to help them realize that we're not pushing it. We're not getting their arm behind their back. We're not putting them in a corner. We're trying to work out first and foremost whether this works for them. And if it works for them, if we're talking to an agent, we've got to work out first, we've got to make sure it works for the agent. The agent then talks to the vendor. We then got to care about the vendor. We come last, okay? If we're talking direct to a vendor or the vendor's family, It's all about sensitivity. It's all about empathy. It's all about everything but that property, really. So this is where one golden nugget would be, you try and find some common ground or something that's interesting. So if you go into a house and you're looking at it, and there's I remember going to a house and I was helping some people with an auction, and I walked in and there was a painting on the wall, and it was obviously it wasn't a sort of like a massive oil that they got from, an art gallery. It was okay for me to say, oh, are you the painter? Well, obviously they weren't going to be the painter, but it takes the subject away. And then I saw some amazing furniture, which I loved because it looked like the French furniture that I've got in my chalet. And I said, oh, wow, I love that furniture. That looks French. He said, yeah, it is, because he was French. And we got onto the subject of my favourite shop in France. By the time we sat down, we were best friends. And he knew that if I spoke what I spoke about, he already trusted me. And it's massively to do with rapport building as to whether they'll even begin to listen to you. And then when you start talking to them, it's how you say it. You've got to come from where they're at. Whoever it is you're speaking to, you come from where they're at. If it's agents, it's all about commission and certainty or speed. With a vendor, it's got to be about their issue. If they've got an issue, and obviously you've got to know about it, it's got to be about what they want out of it. Now, if they want a complete sale and they want 300,000 smackers in their account tomorrow, we know it's not going to work as an option. So why push it? Does that help?
Yes, I think that that was really nicely put, Gillie, and leaves us in a great place, I think, to wrap up. So if there aren't any more questions, I'd just like to finish off by thanking Gillie for her time. Hopefully, you've all managed to, take something away from this Q&A, and that it's put, any questions at ease and help you think about whether, this course is right for you. There is a lot to be said about some things where we feel that maybe they're too good to be true. Hopefully we're showing you that actually there is a more creative and kind side to options. And that's where, the work and the training that goes in to make sure that you're using them, as Gillie pointed out, sensitively, and in the right way makes them go a long way and can turn it into a strategy that you can go back to. So in the interest of time, we're going to wrap up. I'm just going to drop the link for the course in the chat now, but we'll also be following up with an email. Please do reach out if you have any more questions. But as we've highlighted, there's a lot that is covered on the day course that hopefully people will find useful and actually actionable. A key thing to highlight what's different about what we do here at Propel is that we don't believe in just giving you the course and saying good luck and leaving you to it. For us, we actually want, our members and people that join to come away feeling like they can actually apply what they're learning and also get some hand-holding, along the way, especially in those initial weeks. So part of what we do is to make sure that not only do you have a little bit more time with Gillie afterwards, so for example, in the most recent one, we had a 30-minute Q&A session to tie up any, final questions, but there's also a WhatsApp group that we put you all in as a way to interact with each other, motivate each other, to see how you're doing, clarify anything that's, maybe after a couple of days wasn't so clear. You have that community to support you as you are on your journey. And we actually have had a couple of what I would count as successes in terms of people actually being able to find potential option deals that that actually had some legs. And actually one lady recently, she did report back to us that she managed to complete a deal on actually in exactly one of your situations in a home that she was renting. So that for us is what we'd like to hear, and we want to make sure that we are giving you the right tools to do that. So thank you all for your time. Yes, please go for it, Gillie.
So, for all of you, the most important thing is we're very, very good at doing courses and shelving them. And I don't want you to, I want people to understand that this is a course that can transform the way in which you go. It's about clarity. I want to give you such clarity and help you to understand the way to find deals and actually have them complete, so that you have these in your portfolio. And it is life transforming if you take action, but you've got to first of all understand it. And I think there are so many brick walls in strategies like options where people just don't quite get the understanding as how they can make it happen. You know, we get taught what an option is, and we get taught it again and again and again via different examples, but that doesn't actually help us do it. And the point is, I want to help you to do it and see the power of it. And as Emma said, my 20-year-old has got a portfolio now of options. He started when he was 17, and my 23-year-old, who's just done university, got his first 8 beds during lockdown. And so it's changed everything for them, because they are potentially, well, the 20-year-old is financially free. He's a drummer, and he is now teaching to young adults in our garden, not right now as we speak, obviously, but it's really exciting, because it's paying it forward. It's helping people who literally cannot think about purchasing properties or having properties to be in no different a situation to those who are wealthy and can afford properties. And this is about equality. And I'll just end by saying, if you've got an agent involved and an investor and an agent, a vendor and yourself, I want you to think of it as an equilateral triangle. You're not a charity. You've got to gain from this. You've got to be happy with what you're going to get. The agent's going to be ecstatic. The vendor's going to be ecstatic, and you're going to be ecstatic if it's done in the right way. So I hope to see you all there. We have a good giggle on the day as well, because it's all about being relaxed. And I do believe that the content is thorough and great value. So have a wonderful day. It's been great to have you on the Q&A. If you've got any more, as Emma said, just reach out and we'll answer any questions you've got.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you all for your time, and we hope to see you all on the course soon. Take care.
All right.